Horrific accident. Film and Namtan's crash scene was far worse than anyone expected. It was a night that changed everything. The city of Bangkok was glowing with its usual neon lights, traffic sounds, and laughter spilling from late-night food stalls. For many, it was just another ordinary night. But for Film and Namtan, two of Thailand's most beloved stars, it would become the night they would never forget. They had just finished a long shoot for their upcoming drama. The schedule had stretched deep into the night, and both were exhausted, but still full of excitement. In the car, they laughed, they teased each other, and they spoke about the future. Film yawned, and Namtan scolded him playfully, saying he was always the calm one, always too serious. He smiled and told her that her energy could light up the whole city. It was a moment of pure warmth between two people who had grown so close through years of working together. But just minutes later, everything changed. At exactly 12:45 a.m., on a dark stretch of highway, a set of blinding headlights appeared out of nowhere. Witnesses say it all happened in seconds. A deafening crash tore through the silence of the night. Metal slammed against metal. Glass shattered into the air. Tires screeched, and the car spun across the road before smashing into the roadside barrier. The wreckage was horrifying. Parts of the car scattered across the road, smoke rising from the engine, sparks flickering from torn wires. Inside the twisted metal lay Film and Namtan. The silence that followed the crash was chilling. For a moment, there was nothing but smoke and the faint hiss of the damaged vehicle. Then came a weak groan. It was Namtan. Her bloodied hand trembled as it reached out through a shattered window. She was alive, but barely. Film was slumped against the steering wheel, unconscious, blood running down his face. When first responders arrived, they froze. The wreck looked almost impossible to survive. One paramedic whispered, "I don't know how they're still alive." Yet somehow, against all odds, they were. The rescue was tense and terrifying. Flames threatened to erupt, and the paramedics knew they had only moments to act. They pulled Namtan out first, her cries echoing in the night. Then, with extreme care, they carried Film out, his body limp, his breathing shallow. Sirens screamed as they were rushed to the nearest hospital. Meanwhile, news of the accident spread like wildfire. Within minutes, social media exploded. Fans began posting desperate messages of hope. Hashtags like Pray for Film and Stay Strong Namtan began trending across the country, then around the world. At the hospital, crowds gathered quickly. Some prayed aloud, others cried uncontrollably, and some held candles, begging the universe to save their stars. Inside the hospital, the scene was heartbreaking. Both were rushed into emergency rooms. Doctors fought to stabilize their conditions. Namtan had broken ribs and deep cuts across her body, but Film's injuries were far more severe. He had suffered head trauma and internal bleeding. The battle to save him was intense. Machines beeped, nurses moved swiftly, doctors gave orders in sharp voices. The night stretched on, every second a matter of life and death. When morning came, Thailand woke up to the horrifying news reports. Television networks replayed images of the wrecked car alongside smiling photos of Film and Namtan from their drama sets. The contrast was unbearable. Outside the hospital, fans camped on the sidewalks. They brought flowers, candles, and handwritten notes. Some sang softly, hoping their voices would carry inside. Others clutched photographs of their idols, whispering prayers with trembling hands. Their colleagues in the entertainment industry were in tears. Actors, directors, and producers posted messages of shock and heartbreak. One co-star wrote, "This feels like a nightmare. We were just laughing yesterday. Please, please survive this." Another said, "They are fighters. They can come back from this." The industry had been shaken to its core. Inside the ICU, Namtan, though weak and in pain, begged to see Film. Doctors hesitated at first, but she would not stop pleading. Finally, they allowed her to be wheeled into his room. She reached out for his hand, tears running down her cheeks, and whispered, "Don't leave me, Film. Please don't leave me." Her words filled the silent room, echoing louder than any machine. For 36 long hours, Film remained unconscious. His body was weak, but the doctors never gave up. And then, in what many are calling a miracle, he moved his fingers. A nurse gasped. Slowly, painfully, his eyes opened. The first thing he saw was Namtan sitting by his side, crying but smiling through the pain. She whispered, "I told you not to leave me." And somehow, even in his fragile state, Film managed a faint smile. It was the moment everyone had been waiting for. The news spread instantly. Crowds outside the hospital erupted in tears and cheers. Fans hugged each other, some collapsing with relief. Social media exploded with joy. Messages of gratitude poured in from around the world. They were alive. Against all odds, they had survived. But survival is only the beginning. Doctors have confirmed that the road ahead will be long. Namtan will face months of physical therapy to recover from her injuries. Film's recovery will be even harder, with rehabilitation needed for both his physical and neurological healing. Their careers, their futures, their very lives have been forever changed. But the most important thing is this: they are alive. As days passed, the hospital became a second home for fans. They kept vigil outside, lighting candles every night. Thousands of people stood shoulder to shoulder, singing songs, praying, and sending love. Inside, Film and Namtan drew strength from that love. Nurses say that whenever they mentioned the support outside, their patients smiled, even through the pain. One director visiting them said, "This is more than just survival. This is a miracle." Their story is no longer only theirs. It belongs to everyone who has ever believed in hope. Last night, a breathtaking scene unfolded. Fans lit thousands of candles outside the hospital, creating a sea of light that stretched down the street. They sang together, their voices trembling but full of strength. It was as if the city itself was holding them close, refusing to let go. And so, the horrific accident that nearly claimed 2 shining stars has now become a story of resilience and hope. Yes, the crash was far worse than anyone expected. Yes, the pain and the scars will remain. But out of the wreckage came something no one could destroy: their will to survive, their bond with each other, and the love of millions who refused to stop believing in them. The world now waits for the day when Film and Namtan will finally leave that hospital. The day they walk outside, hand in hand, to greet the fans who never stopped praying. That day will not just be a victory for them, but a victory for hope itself. Because sometimes, even in the darkest hours, light finds a way to shine through. And when it does, it reminds us all that miracles are real. This is the story of Film and Namtan. A story of tragedy, survival, and the power of love that even a horrific accident could not destroy. The crash itself was nothing short of catastrophic. Witnesses who were nearby say they will never forget the sound. It wasn't just a normal collision. It was as if the entire highway shook under the weight of that violent impact. Drivers slammed on their brakes. Some screamed. Others sat frozen in disbelief, staring at the twisted vehicle spinning helplessly across the lanes. One motorcyclist who had been only a few meters behind later told reporters, "It looked like the car exploded before my eyes. The glass flew into the air like sparks. I thought no one inside could ever survive that." His voice cracked as he recalled the moment, his hands still shaking from the memory. The car slammed into the roadside barrier with such force that pieces of metal snapped off and clattered into the darkness. The headlights flickered twice before going out completely, leaving only the faint glow of broken taillights reflecting on the asphalt. Smoke rose in thick waves, filling the night air with the bitter stench of gasoline and burning rubber. The wreckage looked more like a crumpled piece of paper than a luxury car. Inside, time seemed to freeze. Namtan's world spun as her body was thrown forward and then slammed violently back into her seat. Pain ripped through her chest as the seatbelt dug into her ribs. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Her ears rang with a deafening high-pitched tone, drowning out everything else. She tried to scream Film's name, but no sound came out. Film, pinned against the steering wheel, remained terrifyingly still. His head was slumped forward, his hair soaked with blood. The airbag had deployed, but the impact was so severe it barely cushioned the blow. His chest rose faintly, weakly, like the rhythm of a candle flickering in the wind. Minutes felt like hours. Namtan, trembling and half-conscious, reached out with bloodied fingers toward him. Her voice finally broke through the ringing in her ears, hoarse and desperate. "Film. Film. Wake up. Please." But there was no answer. Outside, the first cars to stop rushed toward the scene. Drivers left their vehicles abandoned on the road, hazard lights flashing in the distance. A young man with tears in his eyes pulled at the mangled door handle, but it wouldn't budge.
"Hold on. Hold on."
"Help is coming," he shouted through the shattered glass, though his voice trembled with fear. Then, the sound of sirens pierced the night. Red and blue lights illuminated the smoke-filled scene like some surreal movie. Paramedics and firefighters stormed forward. The first paramedic dropped to his knees by the driver's side and gasped, "My God, it's them." Recognition spread like wildfire. Everyone knew. This wasn't just another accident. These were two of the country's most beloved stars.
"Film. Namtan. Can you hear me?" the medic shouted.
Still nothing from Film. But then, from the passenger side, came a faint, broken cry. Namtan's trembling hand pushed through the shattered glass. The medic grabbed it instantly. "She's alive! She's alive!" Adrenaline surged through the rescue team. Firefighters pulled out heavy tools, sparks flying as they cut through the mangled steel. The air filled with noise, sirens, shouts, and the metallic scream of the jaws of life tearing the car apart. Every second felt like a race against time. Finally, the passenger door gave way. Two paramedics carefully pulled Namtan free. Her face was pale, streaked with blood, her breath sharp and shallow. She tried to sit up, but collapsed into their arms. "Film," she whispered, pointing weakly toward the driver's side before losing consciousness. All eyes turned to Film. The steering wheel had pinned him tightly, and his body refused to move. The firefighters shouted to each other, cutting deeper into the wreck. At last, the twisted frame gave way. They pulled him out gently, laying him on the cold asphalt. For a terrifying moment, there was silence. No one could see his chest rising. "Stay with us, Film," a paramedic yelled, pressing against his chest, checking for a pulse. After agonizing seconds, a faint rhythm returned. The team lifted him onto the stretcher with trembling urgency. "We've got him. Move, move." Both stars were rushed into separate ambulances. The flashing lights lit up the highway as the vehicles tore through the night. Witnesses stood in shock, some clutching their mouths, others filming with shaking hands. A woman in the crowd sobbed, "They're so young. Why them? Why tonight?" The crash site was left in eerie silence once the ambulances disappeared. Smoke still rose from the twisted wreck, now nothing more than a shell of what it once was. Police cordoned off the area, photographing every angle, collecting fragments of glass and metal. The highway, once roaring with traffic, stood frozen under the weight of tragedy. Hours later, images of the wreck spread online. Fans were horrified. The vehicle was barely recognizable. Social media erupted with disbelief. Comment after comment asked the same haunting question: how did anyone survive that? Back at the crash site, one firefighter stayed behind, staring at the wreckage. He admitted to reporters later, "I've seen hundreds of accidents in my career, but this one will stay with me forever. It looked impossible. The fact that they left that scene alive, that's a miracle." And so, the first chapter of this horrific night ends not in silence, but in questions. Questions about fate, about survival, and about what it truly means to stand at the edge of death and still find a way back. The crash itself was far worse than anyone expected, but within the wreckage, amidst the fire, the blood, and the chaos, something even stronger began to emerge: the fight for life.